Well, this is All Out Politics, news, debate and opinion from the heart of Westminster. Let's have a look at the state of play across Europe after last night's results. I'm joined by a panel of correspondents from across the continent. Tessa Szyszkowitz is an Austrian journalist and historian. Enrico Francescini is the correspondent for the Italian daily newspaper La Repubblica. Florentin Colomb is the London correspondent of the French daily Le Figaro. And Katrin Prybil is the UK and Ireland correspondent for a number of German newspapers. And just briefly, I'm going to ask you what happened in your home countries. What happened in Germany?
Quite a political earthquake, actually. So the Greens have done amazingly well. They gained more than 20%. And the Social Democrats have lost massively. But then at the same time, you can literally see the two big divides going through Germany. East, West. In the East, the far-right AfD have done very well, whereas in the West, the Greens have done so well. But then also the age gap, so the younger the voters were, the more likely it was that they voted Green. And now, I mean, the Grand Coalition has to pick up the pieces right now.
Tessa, what about in Austria?
Well, it was a triumph for the Prime Minister, who is from the populist right, who just lost his far-right coalition partner through Ibiza-Gate. You know what I'm talking about. Spicy information. So the Prime Minister, although he won the elections yesterday night, is facing a non-confidence vote today in Parliament. So we're in the middle of a government crisis, which is not necessarily connected with the European elections. But the Greens did quite well, so it's not only, it's a little bit in the picture also like in Germany, where the Greens picked up votes from the other side of the spectrum. It's not only a nationalist, populist win.
Enrico, in Italy?
Well, in Italy we had Matteo Salvini, the leader of Lega, the league that won a great victory. He's probably going to become, now he's deputy prime minister, probably will become prime minister in an early election in Italy after this. He's partner in the coalition, government coalition, the M5 Stars movement that was founded by the comedian Beppe Grillo. They lost a lot of votes. Now they are in third place, and the Democratic Party, the party of the left, let's say, is back in second place but not doing very well. So the Financial Times presented this election as Salvini versus Macron. It looks like Salvini has won it.
Well, has it? What about France?
Macron has limited the damage, actually. It was a sort of rerun of the presidential election 2 years ago, Macron facing Le Pen. And Le Pen claimed victory, but she has less than 1 point ahead compared to Macron. And she's actually receded compared to 2014. She's losing 2 MEPs. She has not the same vote share. So Macron sort of like, he sort of framed the debate between him representing the progressists, the pro-EU liberals, against the populist nationalists. And of course, nationalists did fared quite well in France, but Macron didn't lose ground so much. Who lost ground a lot is the former mainstream center-right party, the party of Chirac and Sarkozy, the Républicains, parallel to the Conservatives here. They're on 8%. It's a huge humiliation for them, and the former socialists are doing very badly as well, whereas the Greens are having a good surge in the vote.
I mean, I'm struck by what you're saying. None of you really talking about the main centre-left, centre-right parties. Is that what we're seeing? And in that sense, the UK is just like the rest of Europe.
Oh, certainly. I mean, for different reasons, I would say. But yes, the main parties in Germany, but all over Europe, have lost hugely. And I think they really have to ask themselves the question, why? I mean, they didn't obviously have a clear message. People didn't know what they were voting for. And yes, it's like the smaller parties. And not only, I mean, the far right have not done as well as expected. So it was the pro-Europeans, actually, who gained the most, I would say.
I mean, maybe it's just that, you know, conventional left-right politics just doesn't have the answers anymore in the 21st
absolutely.
century.
And I think it will be interesting to see now in the European Parliament that the Conservatives and the Social Democrats have to take into account the new liberal fracture where it's also the Lib Dems will sort of play maybe a short-lived role, but they will sort of join these forces, and together with Macron there, and also, you know, all the liberal parties of the other countries, like the Austrian ones, can have a little bit of a say in who will be Commission president, who will become, you know, chief in all the institutions, and that could also be a good, fresh way of politics. It's now being seen as a problem, of course, for the European People's Party and for the Social Democrats, that they cannot together decide about this anymore. But it might not be such a bad thing that people in Europe get the feeling that there is actually a real political debate going on and not only the big parties deciding.
I mean, so long as we're there, do you think we're going to see Brexit and Salvini's Lega working closely together?
No, because Brexit has been a good lesson for the anti-European forces in other countries. So Salvini used to say, we'll go out of Europe, we'll have Italy exit after Brexit, or at least we will leave the euro. But now he is not saying anything like that. He wants to change the way the European Union is. He wants to become the leader of the populist. And it's kind of strange, an alliance of nationalists. Nationalists should care only about their own country. In fact, the problem is the nationalists all over Europe. They are very different. But Salvini wants to be the leader. They called them all in Milan. Some of them went. Marine Le Pen went. And so he wants to be the strong man of Europe.
I mean, Marine Le Pen is saying she's getting on better with Nigel Farage.
Yeah, I heard her saying that, but she's actually her partner in Strasbourg is Salvini. So it's another platform. It's not leaving the EU. It's changing Europe. I was hearing one of her spokespersons yesterday saying, "We don't hate Europe. We don't want to leave Europe. We don't want to destroy Europe. We just want to change it." And there was a Frexit party, a French Frexit party, running yesterday. They got less than 1%. So it's a different attitude, and there is nothing really compared to what Brexit has done here to politics. It's not the same extent.
Of course, the job of this parliament is to put the top officials in place. We've got a German as the current nominee to take over from Jean-Claude Juncker, Manfred Weber. On the basis of these results, is his chances of actually getting the job improved or harmed?
That's the big question, but I mean, today is the big day of negotiating the positions in Brussels. I think he will try to secure his votes till tonight, because otherwise, you know, like once he doesn't get through, he's going to be in trouble in the next days, because then, of course, people like Macron, who criticized him quite a lot, will step in, but I don't really see who else can become the
Chancellor
president.
Kurz is not too keen, as I understand it, on Manfred Weber.
Well, I think for him it will be the question if he now moves his whole European policies a little bit more to the center, because he has been a hardliner recently, and he was, for example, also supporting a very fast, quick, hard Brexit.
Sure.
So he'll have to see where he goes with his, you know, Austria is a small country, so we are not deciding on European politics, but he could throw his weight behind a candidate where he feels that it's sort of good for conservative policies. The question is, if the conservatives have to now give way to someone, the conservatives in Germany have to give way to someone from a smaller country that has a bit less of a distinct conservative profile. So
And what does
will be
it say
interesting
about
to see.
democracy? They campaigned for Manfred Weber in the past weeks. If they now change the candidate,
Right, I mean, I don't know the answer to this question. What happened in the old Eastern Europe? What happened in Hungary, Poland, places like that?
Well, you know, Orban, unfortunately, is a very, very successful prime minister and campaigner, and they won big. And so this is one of these dark horses of European policies, because, you know, Manfred Weber did suspend the leadership of Fidesz, of the Hungarian party of Viktor Orban, in order to maybe have the chance of getting his support also after the elections now. But Orban has made clear that he is not a friend of Manfred Weber. So it's all a little bit up in the air how this will come out.
So where does this leave President Macron's vision for the new Europe?
A little bit in tatters, because as we've discussed, the new parliament is very fragmented. He is short of allies. He can't work with Angela Merkel, who has other fish to fry.
He's got Guy Verhofstadt.
Yes, exactly. So maybe he can try and build a sort of centrist consensus there, which is not going to be very sustainable, but so it's going to be a lot of bridge making and negotiations to try and go ahead. But one thing that could be that could come out of this is maybe a chance for Michel Barnier at the head of the Commission as a candidate who has the legitimacy of the Conservatives, the EPP, but also the support of France and Macron and other countries. So maybe we could see him as a dark horse of the next European
And let's
Commission.
not forget, you usually say that European politics is kind of boring, complicated, but Italy is now given as a gift something fun to European politics, because Silvio Berlusconi, do you remember him? He's been elected again. He will be an MP. He's back, only 82, 83 years old. With all these troubles, he was thrown out of Italian parliament because of his problem with women and corruption and so on. But now he's back.
Well, Berlusconi's
so
back.
we will have something to
He and Farage can have a competition.
Yes,
Who could be rudest to the European officials? Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Fascinating stuff. This is All Out Politics.